We're here at a class reunion, and Johnny St. Clair, when did you graduate from Muleshoe High School?
In 1969.
1969. What do you remember about that year?
Well, we had the year before we had been moved into a 3A district for sports, and we didn't win any football games. But one of the things that I remember the most, and you may remember this too, was the week before graduation, West Camp had about a 6-inch rain. And it closed the highway to Morton, to Lubbock, and to Plainview, and school was out for about 5 days.
Was there any other place better to grow up in and than Muleshoe, Texas?
Absolutely not. I was born and raised in Muleshoe, and went to kindergarten and to Mary DeShajo schools, and I still have some of my most best friends that I went to school with.
Now, who were some of those?
Well, the first one that comes to my mind is Trevor Ford. But Lindy Kerr is probably my oldest friend because we were toddlers together. And then, just the list goes on and on and on.
Now, tell me a story about Wagnon's grocery store.
Well, that was an interesting situation because my parents lived 1 block away from the Wagnon grocery store, and my mother would send me on my bicycle. That was the mode of transportation back then for all of us, and she would send me over there to get some things, and I always had a little basket on the front of my bicycle. So she sent me over for a loaf of bread, and of course I walked in like I owned the store and went back and got a loaf of bread and just walked right out the front door. And when I got home, my mother said, "Well, where's the charge ticket?" And I said, "What charge ticket?" She said, "Well, you know that you're supposed to go see June Wagnon and make sure that he writes that down." So she picks up the phone and calls the store and gets June on the phone, and she said, Johnny just went over there and got a loaf of bread. And he said, "Yes, Dorothy, I saw him, and I went ahead and made a ticket for that for you." So that was the first time that I ever shoplifted.
Oh. Now, what would you do on a summer's day in Muleshoe, Texas?
I was very best friends in grade school and in the junior high with Roger Swint and Andy King. And we would get on our bicycles and all over town we would be. And we had such great times together, and just so many old friends. And sadly, Max King called me about 4 years ago and said that Andy's funeral was going to be in Odessa, and I drove down there to Andy's funeral. And I still stay in contact with Roger. He's in Amarillo and retired from the meatpacking industry.
Really?
He was with Iowa Beef, or one of their subsidiaries, for well over 30 years.
My goodness, I didn't know that. Now, tell me about a fall day in Muleshoe, Texas.
We've got the most beautiful Chinese elm trees in this town, and the leaves would start turning in the fall, and my home is still on 7th Street, and those Chinese elm trees, I can't believe they're so big, but I would climb up in the top of those trees and just sit and sway back and forth with the wind until I'd fall out.
Now, who did you marry? Not like I didn't know.
Deborah Wagnon, Joe Pat and Jerry Nell's daughter. And we married in 1972, and we will celebrate our 48th wedding anniversary next August.
I can't believe that. Now, how many children do you have?
We have 2. Amanda St. Clair, and she is a teacher at Lubbock ISD, and Damon St. Clair. And Damon is a self-taught lighting and sound engineer, and he does a lot of work for the city of Lubbock.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So they both live in Lubbock.
Yes, they do. And we have, Amanda has 3 children. Bailey, who's a senior at Friendship. Ethan, who is a sophomore at Friendship. And Jeremiah is the youngest, and he is a 7th grader at one of the junior highs. And he is the specialty kicker on his football team.
Oh, wonderful.
And so we went to see him play football the other night, and Jeremiah's not a very big guy, but he certainly has a kicking leg, and he can kick the football about 45 yards in the air.
Wonderful. Isn't that great? And now what about Damon's children?
Damon and Crystal have been a couple now for about 20 years, and we had given up on them. And you know, just over 3 years ago, they surprised us at Thanksgiving that they were going to have a little boy. And his name is Cash, and Deborah and I get to keep him at least twice a week. And he is a really sweet little boy.
Oh, it sounds like you have a good life in Lubbock.
You know, we have moved around some. When we closed St. Clair's department store in '83, we ended up in Mesa, Arizona for 10 years. And then we got an opportunity to move to Waco. And we were in Waco for 20 years. And
Now, what did you do in Waco?
we had a long-term care business, and we ran that for about 6 years. And then we were a non-licensed facility, and at one point the Texas Department of Human Services required us to be licensed, and we closed the business at that time. And
I understand.
and then I had a really good job with Verizon Wireless for several years, and then probably the best thing that's ever happened to me financially is I was recommended to work as an independent contractor for an electricity aggregator. And I'm chomping at the bits for Lubbock Power and Light to deregulate here in a couple of years, and I'll work one more year and then I'll retire.
Oh, wonderful. Well, retired you are going to be.
One of these days. But the point is, I'm like my dad. I love people. And I love the work that I do, because I tell myself in the morning that I'm going to go out today and make some new friends.
Now, what about Deborah?
Deborah is a retired school teacher and has her master's in education, and she was a special ed coordinator for several years. She worked in Mesa for a few years. She worked several years in the Waco area, and then she worked at Dunbar Middle School for 2 years when we moved back to Lubbock, and now she is a retired grandma.
Oh, wonderful. Johnny St. Clair has organized this class reunion for the class of what?
1969.
My goodness. Cheryl Mason.
Hi, Megan. So good to be here for our 50th class reunion. I just can't believe it.
Well, what year did you graduate from Muleshoe High School?
I graduated in the class of 1969.
1969. And where do you live today?
I just moved. I'm in the Dallas area. I just moved to Frisco, but I've lived in Waxahachie for 25 years, and then I moved to Dallas when my kids got old and married and gone from home, because I worked in Dallas for Baylor Scott and White Health, and so. Since I'm getting close to retirement, I decided maybe I needed a house instead of an apartment. So I bought a little house in Frisco in the Del Webb retirement community.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it. I have fabulous neighbors, and we're all kind of in the same part of life, yeah. And it's got all the amenities I'd ever want and lots of things to do. So when I decide to retire, and I'm really thinking about it, then I'll have lots of fun.
Well, you will be fun to always be around.
Well, thanks. I'm really active, and my goal is travel. So, yeah.
Where do you want to go?
Well, I'm going to Ireland this summer with the group that I sing with. And
Now, tell me about your singing group.
I sing several places, but the group that I travel with is a group called Credo. And it's directed by Jonathan Pallant. And they went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam with them 2 summers ago. And it was a fabulous trip. And we sang all over Vietnam. And that last summer, I didn't go on the trip, but they went to. They ended up in Marrakesh, so it was a big deal. And I'm excited about Ireland because we'll get to sing in all the cathedrals, and it'll just be fabulous. And we do some concerts with local groups as well, so we'll get to sing with some people from there, and so that's really exciting. Really exciting.
That's fabulous. Now, tell me, what have you been doing professionally?
Well, I've worked for Baylor Scott and White Health now for 17 years, and I am the community benefit consultant for the hospitals in the North Texas group. And so that's about 15 counties in the north part of Dallas, of the state, because we merged with Scott and White several years ago. So we're so spread out now. We have north and south central regions. So.
And now, tell me about what you do otherwise.
Well, I'm still performing. I thank Mr. Moore so much for all he gave me. He gave me an avocation that has lasted a lifetime, and I'm still performing. I'm going to do Glass Menagerie coming up in the next fall, and just closed Agnes of God, and lots of just everything. I still love theater, and I guess I'll always look for an audience.
Yes. And that's a good way to be.
Well, I hope so.
Now, tell me about your family.
Well, I have 2 boys, and Jay and his family live in Phoenix, Arizona. And my son Jakob just was transferred to Fort Huachuca in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And he's got 18 years in the military and 1 little girl. Her name is Gianna. And then Jay has 2 daughters, Erin Emily, and Jessica Raleigh, and named after my dad and my son. And he is a chef. He's an innovation chef. And so he just won a trip to Korea for tasting the Korean culture. And the company that he's going with is it was like a nationwide search, and it was he and 1 other chef were selected to go on the tour, and yes, it's exciting. He does. He's done innovations for Burger King, Southeastern Mills, CF Chefs. A long time ago, Bennigan's, and his latest gig was with Payway, and now, so if you've ever eaten at Payway, you've eaten lots of his innovations, and now he's just opened his own consulting business, and is really taken off.
Isn't that great? Tell me about what your real name is now.
My real name now is Cheryl Mason Sullivan. Yes. So I married Jerry Sullivan. We met in college, and we're fast sweethearts, although I said I had 1 date with him. I said, I'll never go out with him again. But he we had one child, and he passed away. Jerry passed away when we were 39. So, and then we had already met Jakob. I worked for Presbyterian's Homes and Children's Services in Waxahachie at that time, and Jakob was abandoned in the U.S. He's born in Eritrea, and he had always been kind of part of our family, and so long story short, I adopted him. So that's kind of where our family. Jay and I adopted him, my son. So.
Well, that is grand, and it is so nice to see you looking so well.
Oh, thank you. Well, I repost the Mule Train in Facebook, and I have so many friends who comment about the stories that you run. And
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
You have lots of fans in Dallas.
Thank you very much. What is your name?
My name is Vicky Henexson Selman.
And so where do you live?
I live in East Texas. I live east of Dallas on Lake Fork, a big bass lake.
Oh, I know that area.
Yes.
Carolyn Johnson is from there.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been there about 20 years. It's a beautiful area, lots of trees and water and wildlife, and we really like it.
Now, are you married?
I am actually widowed 2.5 years ago, so, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. And what was your husband's name?
His name was Randy Selman, and he was a fireman in Lubbock and retired from the Lubbock Fire Department. And then we moved to Wood County on Lake Fork, and he became the fire marshal there and also the emergency management coordinator there.
Wonderful. And so what did you do after graduation?
Well, after graduation, I went to WT in Canyon, and that's where I met Randy, and then we moved to Lubbock, and I also went to LVN school, so I became a pediatric nurse in Lubbock for 18 years.
Wonderful. Now, do you remember who the homecoming queen was your senior year?
It was me.
Oh, it was.
Yes. Yeah, I felt very honored, very honored.
Who were your attendants?
Peggy Williams and who? I'd have to go look at my annual over there.
That
I'm not sure. Can't remember.
What did you do at Muleshoe High School?
Well, I was a cheerleader, and I was in the art club, and I was in FTA. And really, I just had a lot of fun. I didn't have time to study. But I had I have wonderful memories,
Who were your parents?
My parents were Bill and Dorothy Henexson. My mom worked at Piggly Wiggly's and Lowe's grocery store for many years. My dad worked for the highway department. My grandmother was Carrie and John Boydston. We moved here because of them, to help take care of them. My aunt and uncle were Opal and Alvin Talley, and she was a police dispatch here for years, and he worked at the meat market. And anyway, and I have a brother, Garland Henexson. He's 4.5 years older than I am, and he goes by Buzz, and he lives in McKinney.
Wow, wonderful. Now, what is a memory you have of Muleshoe High School?
Oh my goodness, I loved it. I would come back and go to school my senior year if I could. Just loved all the people, all the teachers. Just a great place to grow up. Really, really loved it.
Wonderful place to grow up, wasn't it?
Yes, wonderful. I have great memories. I'm so excited to see all the classmates.
And who were some of the teachers that you remember?
Okay, well, Mr. Moore and Mr. and Miss Smith, Mr. Stegall, Miss Newsom, Miss Kerr, it's Miss Black. Just, a lot of great teachers.
Did she teach art?
Yes, yes. And I was in her art club, and yes, she was great. I laughed. I was telling someone the other day that she would come in and she'd look at your picture and she would just do a little bit of this and that on it, and it looked wonderful. So we became artists right away. So she was great.
And what is a memory that you have of the fall in Muleshoe?
Of the fall? The football. Of course, I love the football, the pep rallies, the games.
What did you wrap the goalposts?
We did. And of course, we made lots of posters. I would get out of government and history, because it was always coaches to work on the posters. And yeah. So I didn't learn a lot of history. But it was fun. Had a great time.
Right.
Yes.
Now, tell me about what you think of Muleshoe today.
I'm impressed. The high school is beautiful. They have just, changed it so much, and it looks so pretty. The stadium is awesome. It is so much larger and nicer than when we were there. Yeah. Really nice. Of course, Leal's was the old corral, and that's what we remember, and the drive-in there at the corral. And
now, was there even a Leal's Mexican restaurant?
I'm not sure. I know where Leal's originally was a restaurant that my mom started working there when I was 9 years old, and I'm not real sure what that restaurant was called. But I'm thinking there was, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
Yeah. There was Dolly Cup and Birdie's and, of course, the Corral. Yes. And those are the ones I remember. Yeah. And Piggly Wiggly's and, of course, Harvey Bass and St. Clair's and Anthony's. And I worked at Anthony's, I guess, gift wrapping at Christmas, one of my first jobs. Yes, yeah.
Wonderful memories. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed talking to you. It's great seeing you. You look awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Terry Hutton.
Terry Hutton from Muleshoe, Texas.
Yeah. And Durscilla Hutton.
Durscilla Dameron Hutton.
Yeah.
In case they don't remember, because I don't look the same.
Oh, I think you do.
Oh, well, there's a resemblance.
Now, where do you live today?
We live in Lubbock, Texas, and have been there probably now about 16 years.
Really? I can't believe. And where is your daddy?
He is in Lubbock as well.
And how old is he, or how young is he?
He is about to be 95 years young. We are about to celebrate his birthday next month, October 27th.
I can't believe that. Now, Terry, who were your parents?
My dad was Horace Hutton. My mother was Irene. And they lived here in Muleshoe for a long time.
Now, they came in from where?
We lived out south of town. We went to school at Three-Way and lived in the Three-Way community for nearly all of our life till we moved in. And I think I was about 12 when we moved in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know your brother Jerry was in high school.
Yeah. Jerry was a freshman, I think, when we moved to town. So.
And Durscilla, were you born in Muleshoe?
Yes, ma'am.
And you lived here all your life up until
Terry and I married, and then we moved out to our farm in southern Bailey County. When we first married, we went back and forth to Lubbock to go to school at Tech. And then when Terry got out of school, we went to the farm to engage in farming full time at that point. And then we moved into Muleshoe probably in 84, I think it was. Is that right, Terry? I forget. I think in 1984, and then moved to Lubbock in 2003.
Well, I can believe that you've been there 16 years.
Oh, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? It's just...
It's unbelievable. Now, who were your parents?
Sam and Elaine Dameron.
Your grandparents. And
My grandparents that lived here in Muleshoe were Joe and Rob Dameron that owned Dameron Drug here on Main Street. A lot of years.
And now you had other family members here.
Yes, my aunt and uncle John and Billy Joanne Smith were here in Muleshoe as well, and then my sister Dana. I had a sister that lived here, so we had a lot of family here. It was fun growing up having family close.
Now, what did you participate in Muleshoe High School?
Mostly speech and drama. That would have been the thing that I was interested in. Couldn't sing a tune through a bucket like my sister could. But if I was in one of the plays, which I looked back at one of your interviews of us that we had at my house on our 30-year reunion, and I thought I was in Flower Drum Song, but I just danced and sang in the chorus, not very loud. And Terry was in The King and I, so we both did that, and it was really fun.
Oh,
so
I know. What do you remember about King and I?
Oh, I remember Lisa Richardson and Mr. Bradley and Carrie Moore, and what a great team that they made. And
Yes.
they were just together. They were just great. You know, all of them were great separately, but together they were great. Yeah.
And now, what did you participate in Muleshoe High School?
I was in athletics. I didn't play basketball, but I played football and ran track. And then I was in choir, and then I was in the King and I.
And what about the football team? How did they do?
We did pretty well until we got to district, and then we didn't win any district games. But we won all of our games before district, and then lost all of the district games.
Now, who was your coach?
Willie McAlpin. I graduated in '66. Durscilla in '69 or whatever.
Yeah.
60 whatever. This is her class reunion, not mine. So, but Willie McAlpin was the coach there.
He was a good coach.
I think so. Willie McAlpin was a really nice man, and really put everything he had into what he was doing.
Absolutely. Now, what would you do on a summer's day in Muleshoe?
probably go to the country club and swim some. I would probably work at the drugstore some, especially on the 4th of July, you know, when everybody would come to town and everybody had specials, you know, of their businesses outside, and I would do that some and ride around like everybody else did. You know, you wanted to see people.
Did you drag name?
I'm sure I did a lot. Everybody did that. That's what you did if you wanted to see people. You know, you couldn't look on Facebook and see where everybody was, and you didn't have computers. You did have, you had phones and you called people, but it was not like. It's not like the communication is now, but the communication was dragging main, and if somebody wasn't there, you knew.
Now, tell me about your family.
Our current family, we have 3 children. The oldest, Heather, is married to Mark, and they live in Lago Vista, Texas, and have 4 daughters. 2 now are in college. Then our son is Corley Hutton, married to Angela Crawford from here in Muleshoe. She was raised here as well. And they have 3 children, an older boy and 2 younger girls. And then our youngest daughter is Holly Mock, married to Jonathan Mock, who is from Denver City. And they have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. So that gives us 10 grandchildren, 3 boys and 7 girls. So it's a full house when we're all together.
Do you enjoy going to the children's activities?
Oh, that's what we do, you know. We go down to the hill country pretty often, and when we're there, it seems like that we're doing kid activities. There's kid activities every day if we want to do that. So
Isn't that fun?
Oh, it really is. It really is. That's great.
And now, on a summer's day in Muleshoe, Texas, I've already asked you that.
I still was dragging me. I was.
On a fall's day in Muleshoe, Texas.
Okay. In the fall, we probably were starting to go to speech tournaments with Carrie Moore to all the, some towns not too far away. And that would be a Saturday thing. And it would go from probably mid-fall in through, January or February until you would have your district competitions. Yeah. So that's probably in the fall what I would do. I'm not sure what else,
Well, now, what about, did you ever go to state or
I
no?
did. The year I was a junior, I was in poetry interpretation and was able to go to state that year and win state, which was really a fun highlight. I love that.
That is wonderful.
It was.
And I know your mother called us.
I'm sure she did. She was there. I had a cousin who was teaching at the University of Texas at that time, and Mother didn't go into that competition, but my cousin, I think probably because she was on staff there, they would let her go in to hear me. And our, district, I'm not sure. It may have been here in Muleshoe that year. I'm not sure. It alternated within our district, but regionals was always in Odessa, so that was fun. Yeah. But it was good. It was a great memory. I loved it.
I love seeing all the students who excelled in Carrie Moore's classes.
Absolutely. And I've heard about this new honor that he is going to be getting, I think, next weekend, maybe. Oh my goodness. Well deserved. Hats off, Carrie Moore. That was how many kids in Muleshoe over the years has he influenced in just being able to get in front of a crowd to speak? I mean, that's a big thing, so he's changed lives.
Yes, he certainly has. Now, Terry, what would you do in the fall of the year?
Well, we'd have football practice, and that would last for a while, depending upon what day that it was, but it always, and then, we'd get in the car and drag Maine and go hang out at the Corral restaurant and, until it was time to go home.
Dragging Maine, how did you drag Maine?
Oh, you went from kind of down here at the end of Main Street and went back up around it wasn't Bill's. What was there was a drive-in way up there, kind of across from the Town and Country on the west side of town, and circle around that, and then drive until you ran out of gas.
And your mother and daddy never complained.
It's not easy to raise children.
Now, who were your brothers and sisters?
Jerry was my brother, a couple of years older. Betty is my oldest sister, and Sharon is my youngest sister.
And where do they live today?
Betty lives around Tyler, and Sharon lives in Arlington. So.
And tell me about Durscilla.
Dana, you mean?
Dana.
I can tell you about me too. Dana lives in Cocoa, Florida, which is on the inland part of what they call the Space Coast. So they were running from hurricanes about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's a beautiful area where they live. Excuse me, I stepped on your foot. They will be here for Daddy's birthday in about a month, and that'll be fun. I talk to her very often, and they still sing some. And Ben works doing voiceover and teaching voiceover, which is like when you hear someone in the background making commentary about a commercial, or even in movies, you'll hear commentary, and that's what he does, and he teaches that. And he's very busy. He's writing some books, so they're very busy. She sings in her church and is really loving that. So it's good to hear her.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Terry and Durscilla Hutton.